Although we are sharing this year's event virtually, the festival is based in St. John's, Newfoundland and Labrador, and we respectfully acknowledge the land on which we gather as the ancestral homelands of the Beothuk, whose culture has been lost forever and can never be recovered. We also acknowledge the island of Uktahumguk, Newfoundland, as the unceded traditional territory of the Beothuk and the Mi'kmaq, and we acknowledge Labrador as the traditional and ancestral homelands of the Innu of Ntsinan, the Inuit of Nunatsiavut, and the Inuit of Nunatuhavut. We recognize all First Peoples who are here before us, those who live with us now, and the 7 generations to come. As First Peoples have done since time immemorial, we strive to be responsible stewards of the land and to respect the cultures, ceremonies, and traditions of all who call it home. As we open our hearts and minds to the past, we commit ourselves to working in a spirit of truth and reconciliation to make a better future for all.
Hello, and welcome to the St. John's International Women's Film Festival. My name is Andrea Wilson Mirza. I am zooming in from Los Angeles and the traditional land of the Tongva people. I am so thrilled and honored to be here with one of my industry heroes, Anna Serner of the Swedish Film Institute. So we're going to have a conversation today, and I'm so thrilled that Anna is going to get to share about her work in these past 10 years as the CEO of the Swedish Film Institute. So a brief introduction in case you're not familiar with Anna's exceptional body of work. As I said, she has been the CEO of the Swedish Film Institute for 10 years. That's true, right? Since 2011. And prior to that, was managing director of the Swedish Media Publishers Association, where she was very active in the public debate on freedom of speech and the media's role in society, as well as previously she was the CEO of the Advertising Association of Sweden from 1998 to 2006. With a degree in law, Anna has a wide experience of board level appointments and has served as an expert on various Swedish government commissions. And in addition, had taken a 2-year course in practical filmmaking at the Stockholm School of Film, as well as film studies at Stockholm University. I want to say, Anna, when you announced you were leaving, more than about 50 organizations, including the one that I work with, signed an open letter to you in acknowledging your work over these years. And a quote from that that I wanted to share was, "It's impossible to overstate the importance of your work for gender equality." And I think that that's absolutely true. The impact of what you've done in your time at the Swedish Film Institute will continue to reverberate throughout our industry and inspire our work for years to come. So welcome and thank you.
Thank you for that presentation, and taking part of that letter was so important and overwhelming. And you fight for things you think are right, but you never know if anything will happen. So when I started off my work, of course, I never would dream of having 50 organizations globally saying a thing like that. And of course, it's because we do it together. I mean, Reframe has been hugely important also for my job. But if I'm a piece of a puzzle, I'm so grateful, and I'm so happy that things are moving.
Mm. It does feel this. It feels that way in this moment. And I've had folks ask me recently, how does it feel to be having these conversations about gender equality now in 2021, and where are you seeing progress? And we really are. Like when we look back at, I think in particular, the last 5 years, things that were being said and said as truths, told to us, well, this is how it is, even 5 years ago versus now. It really has transformed and shifted. So I'm eager to dig into that a little bit. But I do want to start by just going back to a bit of your origin story in coming into the role at the Swedish Film Institute, and kind of what brought you there. I know you're well, you studied. Were you a lawyer? Were you a practicing lawyer in your career?
Yeah, a couple of years. It wasn't really. For a while, I was the lawyer for a bank, and I lost a zero. That's not very good when you're talking billions. So I'm more of, painting with a big brush than going into those kinds of details. But I have had a lot of help from my law degree, actually, because it makes you understand where decision making are happening, and it makes you understand also what is actually unlawful and do things about it. So when the Me Too movement started off in Sweden, my take on it was actually a legal one. At this publicly funded film institute, we cannot fund films with taxpayers' money that goes to working places that are actually unlawful, because harassments are unlawful. So we demanded the production companies to take a one-day education in anti-harassment work. What are the laws and how can you work with it? It was very criticized, but no one wants harassment. So the producers and heads of the production companies were actually very happy because it's a slippery slope where harassment goes into something else, or just pure friendliness is suddenly in harassment. And we need to talk about it. And I could address it from another perspective through my law degree.
That's such an interesting framing. And it's true because, when we talk about systemic change, we have to understand the system to come into it and why it is the way it is. And I've heard you speak about, when you started at the Swedish Film Institute, that you were very clear that, I'm a feminist and these are the principles I'm bringing into my work. What was that time like when you came in? Like, did you feel like you could really just dive in and get started and make this change? Or was it, did you face a lot of challenges in getting people on board with that agenda when you first started?
Well, I will try to keep it short. My motto is always stop, talk, and start to act. And I'm confident in that if you act and it turns out that the action wasn't very good, then you just change action. But it's always better to actually do than only talking. But as I had been a sort of profiled feminist in Sweden, I realized that I can't, include everyone in the work from the beginning. I just had to act because I was scrutinized. So what I did was I took a colleague and friend of mine with me, and we made up the whole first action plan. Because I had worked with gender equality for so many years, I knew the common arguments. Women, there aren't no good women. Women say no, you can't do quota because then you lose quality. So I could use those common arguments and make an action to show them wrong. So that was actually our strategy. So we just invented 5 actions, but the most important one was to prove that counting is not doing quota, and counting leads to quality. So we started to count. And doing that, when I launched the action plan, I actually did it in Cannes on the beach for a lot of reporters. And they kind of looked beside me towards the bar because they wanted a drink. And no one wrote about it. But this was in 2013, and already in 2015 at the Oscars that year, I think that was the year of the Oscars So White was launched. But it was also the year when Kate Blanchett, Emma Watson, Patricia Arquette, Meryl Streep, a lot of high-profile women started talking about how it is being a woman. And as soon as they started talking, everyone wanted to talk to someone that was actually doing something. And everyone was pointing towards us. So when we, 4 years later from the launch of our action plan, could show that in 4 years we achieved 50-50, I realized that this is not over. We are just started something. We were going to do a new launch for the next action plan for the next 4 years. And we realized, so this will be a tricky one because we knew the reporters wouldn't be there. They showed that 2013. So we invented the 50-50 by 2020 tagline because it was catchy. And we got our Minister of Culture, a Black woman, she was actually very active and wanted to come with us. And we made a new launch on the beach in Cannes, and we were really terrified that no reports would be there. But this time, 4 years later, the line for me and the Minister of Culture and the French Minister of Culture took us hours to, answer all the questions because it already started to move. So suddenly it was that 50-50 by 2020 was just thrown into a big demand of people that really wanted to change. And so it was a very happy coincidence. And then during the time to come, we had the Harvey Weinstein affair. And I'm pretty sure that if we hadn't had that luck with the launch of the 50-50 by 2020, the awareness would have been much lower. And I'm pretty sure that he would have been able to sneak out and the media attention would have been so much lower and Me Too wouldn't have happened. So it really is so many coincidences and so many works. And you launched the Reframe, I think in 2017, wasn't it?
That's right. Yeah.
In the springtime, and it got a lot of attention. So we all contributed in different ways. And I think that's the only way we can do it. Acknowledge what we all do, share it, and spread it.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And so much of what you're saying resonates with me because I think what you shared about, we need to take action. I remember being in so many spaces of panels and, conversations prior to say, 2015, where it just felt like we were sort of talking to a wall, right? Of okay, we're back, we're having this conversation again. The numbers are not moving. The action that you took really set the stage and allowed for other organizations to point to you and say, okay, there's a model now. And I think that's such an important lesson for women working in the industry, is that just because we haven't seen anyone else do it yet, we can do it. We can come up with that. And what we need to sort of shed is the fear of failure, and the idea that, if we try it and it doesn't work, we'll never get another chance.
What I really want to throw in is that the importance of network and people coming up to you, because when you're a trailblazer, you meet so much resistance. I mean, I've been, and this was just a year ago when I was accused of stopping the freedom of the artistic freedom. I'm a danger for democracy. I'm a leftist activist. A lot of accusations in the media all over the place that was just the truth. So for me, going abroad and where I'm not a threat for anyone, and getting the good energy really was necessary, because it's hard being
Mm-hmm.
there and facing. And if you want to be there, you need knowledge and you need a network, and everyone that are around you need to know that if they send you an SMS or if they send you a mail, that means the difference of a lifetime, because you know there are people out there supporting you, because you only hear the ones complaining. So everyone can actually help the ones that are brave enough or stupid enough or naive enough to be trailblazers.
That's right. No, absolutely. We need community, right?
Yeah.
We need that community to do this work, to, to support artists and filmmakers as well. Like we need that community, and we're all part of that community moving forward. And I think, something that I think about a lot is there's more content being made than ever before now, right? Like the streaming platforms, the huge increase in episodic content, that there's so much more space than there used to be. So the idea that pushing for equity is limiting artistic possibility, it's silly, because there is more space. And how do we shift the mindset towards abundance and away from, there's just this one pie, and if we're giving more to women, we're taking some away from men. I know this is a conversation you've faced many times. How do you approach that?
Well, I mean, it's a fact when you take the whole talent base into consideration, the competition for money will be harder. And
Mm,
the only thing is you have to shape up. Everyone
mm,
has to shape up. And I understand the people that knew how to get the money now feel threatened. And they just need to understand that there were a lot of people that never got to get the money and now suddenly are taking into consideration when being given the chance to tell stories. And it enhances the quality of film. I mean,
mm,
the past four big competitions, Venice, Cannes, Oscar, they were
mhm,
won by women, and
mhm,
they were won by women of color, and they were telling different kinds of stories. And I think that if we just endure, we will get used to the idea of it's not that weird that women actually are considered good enough to get an Oscar.
mm.
uh, because we are still there, so we just need
Yeah.
to move on. So I think that what we need to acknowledge is that if we take the whole talent base into consideration, the way to money will be harder, because we can't do everything, and there aren't money enough for everyone. But there are so many women that have fantastic stories to tell, and the past years of Venice, Cannes, Oscar shows that women can tell stories. It's women of color, it's women of different perspectives, and it's actually enhancing the quality. And every one of us needs to shape up to be able to be part of this movement, because it's a good movement.
Mm. Um, I can imagine that as your tenure is coming to an end, you're probably thinking about these different moments a lot of the journey. Is there a particular piece of your work that you feel like very proud of, like that stands out to you, that this was a turning point? Is there anything that you're particularly reflecting on now as you're getting ready to move on?
Well, I would say there are two. One sort of point of clearness, and that was actually the year 2017 when Swedish film won the Sundance,
Mm,
won the Cannes Film Festival, won the big animation prize in Annecy in France, won the European Film Awards, won the Parliament in Europe's Lux Prize, and open TIFF, as the first Nordic film ever, and it was 50-50. And it was one guy he's a first generation, or actually, yes, first generation immigrant coming from Egypt, and two women, one woman in animation. And that really was amazing that we could be so diverse and win these prizes. And I think that really showed that we are on the right track. But the next point of clarity came when I was approached by a woman within the Black community in Stockholm. And she said, Anna, do you know that in my community, they don't even know that you have the target 50-50? Because they felt excluded, because I didn't have the language to include them in the conversation early. And I had been working with diversity, and we had a Black commissioner working with us at the Swedish Film Institute. And we did a lot of really great stuff together, but he had a short term, so he ended it. And I felt like, no, I've been missing out the intersectional perspective. And that was really an eye-opener. So I immediately called in women of color and of age and said, am I right? Have we left you out? And is it time for us to speak out? And they said, yes, please. And it was the start of a cooperation with the women that really opened the eyes of many people in Sweden. Sweden haven't been a very multicultural country for many years. We are far behind the many Anglo-Saxon countries. So I think that now we are really starting, and I'm so happy that my eyes got opened before I left office, because it was due time. It was, of course, overdue, but better later than never.
That's beautiful. And I think so, when we're thinking about the future and we're thinking about the next steps for this work and the next steps of our industry, it is about intersectional gender equity and also, addressing all of those historical exclusions, and the impact that has had on our global filmmaking community and our larger industry. Would you like to leave us with I don't want to say a final thought, because you still, are going to have so many incredible pieces of wisdom to impart to our industry, but anything you'd like to share on our way out today?
Well, I actually think that we should take time to acknowledge the progress sometimes, because it's very easy to get stuck with the problems. And that's an energy drainer. And if we're going to endure and keep on working, we just need to see that we are actually pushing forward. So that is for every one of us. But then for the power people that are actually in power, we need to reflect, who are we to tell what stories to be told? We have to include other decision makers in one way or another. But we need to understand that we don't know what quality is. That's in the eye of the beholder. So if we want stories for everyone has to be able to tell their stories. So we just need to start or continue.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you, Anna Serner. Thank you for your time and for your legacy. And we look forward to sharing this conversation with the audiences here in St. John's. Thanks so much.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing all of you in some other new role. And we'll wait and see what that turns out to be. But thank you for inviting me.
Beautiful.